Well, we know that the suspect allegedly claimed to be part of a syndicate. That has yet to be confirmed. But it does beg the question, is child trafficking on the rise? To answer that, I'm joined by security expert Rory Steyn. Thanks for your time this afternoon. So despite that apparent confession, we're not saying that this recent incident in Roodepoort is related to child trafficking. That investigation is underway and police will determine what happened. But this incident certainly did make parents across the country very, very anxious. Is kidnapping and snatching of children for trafficking on the rise?
You know, Annelie, first of all, good afternoon to you and everybody watching the broadcast. We as security professionals have for a number of years been quite surprised at the very low incidence and low percentage of crime committed in South Africa being kidnapping or abduction, and there is a difference between abduction and kidnapping. But we have seen that change, and in countries like certain South American countries, in Russia and certain of the former Soviet states, there is a far higher incidence of kidnapping compared to, you know, the average crime rate than there is in South Africa, where our number was low. It is now no longer low. And we have, over the last, I'd say, 2 years, 2.5, maximum 3 years, we've seen incidences of kidnapping increase. There has been targeting not just of children, there has been targeting of business people in this manner. The Asian community, especially those that are immigrants and operate in cash environments, we've seen them being targeted. But to do with children, it's normally one of two things. It's normally a kidnapping for ransom, where somebody is specifically targeted, and then the criminals conduct proper surveillance. They do their homework. They find where the child would be most vulnerable, how to contact the parents. That's not very common. It's rare. The other one is, as you've suggested, human trafficking. And even that isn't all that common, but it's a reality all over the world. South Africa is not immune. And because we've got, certain parts of our social constructs kind of lend themselves to kidnapping of children. For example, our labor market requires that adults go and find work and often leave children in the care of grandparents or siblings. Our children in certain cities and towns walk home from school, making them quite vulnerable. So that, criminals are not oblivious to that, and they will have a look at that. Or, if it's not those two options, the third one, and there is speculation even in this specific incidents about this, is that it has to do with a family divorce or some kind of conflict between the parents. They may not necessarily have been married, the parents, but the one parent needs to use the child as some kind of leverage over the other. And as a security professional, you can never sit and look at a 2-minute video clip and understand the story, because that wouldn't be very professional. So I don't want to speculate, but I would say that this crime falls into one of those three categories. And what the restaurant owner did was truly commendable, and also what the parents did, and that was reported to the police. That is the right thing to do. So until the police have finished their investigation and this matter goes to a court of law, we won't know the full details and the facts behind why, what was the purpose, what was the motive. It's a crime, so that we talk about motive. What is the motive? But as that restaurant owner said, what we as parents, and I'm the parent of 3 boys, they're a lot older than that little girl, but you have got to, even before you go and do something like self-defense training or awareness training, you really need to become more aware of your personal environment. We constantly say this whenever we are interviewed on ENCA's shows on security or incidents of crime. You really do need to have a plan, play the what-if game. So when you're sitting at a restaurant and you've seen that video, parents should really be asking themselves, well, what if somebody jumped over that railing over there and came for my child? What would I do? Scream, make a noise, call for help, whatever. And hopefully you'll find a good Samaritan like that that restaurant owner, and I think he really should be commended. If you look at the speed with which that guy reacted, it was almost as if he was waiting for it to happen. He looked almost like he was the bodyguard of that little girl. He reacted so fast. So
I suppose
really
that's also the
commendable.
benefit of self-defense or martial arts training. Obviously, not all of us can undergo that kind of training.
Right.
Rory, it's far easier to secure a home against intruders, but when you're out in public, that kind of technology doesn't work. So what technology is on the market? I know that, for instance, there are wearable devices, tracking bands that some parents buy their children as a sort of a safeguard. What else is on the market?
Well, every single cell phone, a smartphone, has the ability to download a number of apps. One that we particularly like is Live Safe, and there are others that you can download to a phone. Now, a child isn't always going to be carrying their phone, and the problem, of course, with a wearable, Annalie, is that it's yet another device that needs to be charged, and there's admin involved in that. But I would say, and you're correct, by the way, that when you leave your home, you leave that kind of that bubble almost of space protected by an alarm, maybe an electric fence, perhaps linked to armed response and all of that. But when you're in the public, you also have you can use or make use of the fact that you are amongst larger numbers of people, the majority of whom would not be criminals, the majority of whom would also be parents and would be willing to come to the assistance of somebody, with a child who calls for help. Fortunately, we as South Africans are pretty big on that. You have certain countries where people will not get involved because they are worried about getting sued, for example. South Africans don't think like that. If somebody with a young girl shouts for help in a supermarket, a restaurant, or a shopping mall, by and large, people are going to come running and they're going to help. And we have private security officers deployed. So you have all of that available to you. And yet there is a plethora of gadgets, whether they're smartphone based or not. It's just that you've got to consider the admin of having them charged and understand what the response is likely to look like if you activate that response service on a wearable, for example.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for those insights. That was security expert Rory Steyn.